For 20 years, she loved him with the innocence of youth, only to lose everything when he vanished. Now, an invisible cleaner, she finds him again, a ruthless millionaire, owner of the very mansion where she works. But beneath his fortune, he hides a dark past and a deadly secret that forced him to change his name. As passion reignites, a dangerous game of blackmail, buried secrets, and past murders threatens to destroy not only their love, but the innocent lives around them. Prepare for a twist that will test the limits of forgiveness and prove that some love stories are simply too strong to be broken. Stay with this story until the end. It will surprise you. This is a tale of love and romance you won't want to miss. Continuing, the alarm blared at 4:30 in the morning, shattering the silence of the small apartment in Astoria, Queens. Isadora Davis peeled open heavy eyes, the fatigue of yesterday still clinging to her bones. At 35, she carried the weight of responsibilities that should have been shared, but which fate had placed entirely in her hands. "Grandma, I'm heading out," she whispered into the next room, where her grandmother, Grandma Carmen, coughed softly beneath the covers. Diabetes and high blood pressure had transformed the woman who was once her rock into someone frail, dependent on the expensive medications Isadora bought with the sweat of 3 different jobs. On the living room pull-out sofa, her nephew Gabriel, barely 12, slept hugging his schoolbooks. The boy was her secret pride, intelligent, determined, dreaming of becoming an engineer. She would do anything to ensure he had the opportunities life had denied her. Isadora brewed a weak coffee, ate a piece of day-old bread, and left for the first job of the day, cleaning a commercial building downtown. By 9, she'd rush to her second job at a diner, and at 2 in the afternoon, she'd catch a bus all the way to Greenwich, Connecticut, to work as a cleaner at the most imposing mansion she had ever seen. Across the city, Lucas Valmont woke on the penultimate floor of his duplex apartment on Park Avenue. At 37, he owned one of the country's largest investment conglomerates. Yet he woke every morning with the same hollowness in his chest that had haunted him for over a decade. His routine was mathematically perfect. Exercise at 5, a cold shower, black coffee without sugar while reviewing financial reports. There was no room for unforeseen events in his life, just as there was no room for feelings. He had learned that emotions were vulnerabilities, and vulnerabilities were luxuries men like him couldn't afford. The bathroom mirror reflected a successful man, but Lucas avoided looking into his own eyes for too long. There still lived the poor boy from Camden, New Jersey, who had lost everything: family, love, innocence, on one terrible night that had transformed him into a money-making machine. "Mr. Valmont, your schedule for today," said Paula, his assistant, handing him the itinerary. Meetings, more meetings, business dinners, a life that seemed important from the outside, but which he knew was merely a succession of empty hours, filled with numbers and contracts. At 3 in the afternoon, Isadora stepped off the bus in front of Stonehaven Estates. The gatekeepers already knew her. The discreet cleaner who never caused problems, always polite, almost invisible. She walked through the perfectly manicured gardens to the service entrance of Mr. Valmont's mansion, as Mrs. Davies, the housekeeper, always referred to her employer. "Today you'll be cleaning his office," Mrs. Davies said, handing her the keys. "He's out for a meeting and won't be back until after 8. Be careful with the papers on the desk. Don't touch anything." Isadora climbed the marble stairs, as always impressed by the surrounding luxury. That world was so distant from hers, it seemed like fiction. She opened the office door and stood for a few seconds, admiring the mahogany library, the artworks on the walls, the panoramic city view. She began cleaning methodically, wiping down every surface. That's when she saw it, half hidden among papers on the desk, an old black and white photograph. She couldn't resist picking it up. It was a young couple, she in a simple dress, he in a white shirt, embracing in front of a small church. There was something about the photo that bothered her, a strange familiarity. The sound of the door opening startled her. Lucas Valmont entered the office, speaking on his cell phone, visibly irritated by some negotiation gone wrong. He slammed the phone shut, ran a hand through his hair, and walked to the bar cart, where he poured a generous shot of whiskey. That's when he noticed her presence. Isadora was still holding the photo, paralyzed by being caught. Lucas turned, ready to reprimand whoever it was, but the words died in his throat. The crystal glass slipped from his fingers, shattering on the wooden floor. "Isadora?" His voice came out as an incredulous whisper. She stared at him, and 20 years vanished like smoke. There stood Lucas Smith, the poor boy she had loved with all the intensity of her 15 years. The first and only man who had touched her heart, the one who had left on a December night without saying goodbye, leaving her pregnant and alone in a tragedy no one else knew. The photo fell from her trembling hands. "Lucas," she whispered back, and the name came out as both a prayer and a curse. The silence in the office was deafening. Lucas remained motionless, watching the woman who had haunted his dreams for 2 decades. Isadora was no longer the bright-eyed teenager he had left behind. Time had carved lines of weariness into her face. Her hands were calloused from hard work, and her hair, once loose and wild, was now pulled back in a simple bun. But her eyes remained the same, deep and filled with a pain he recognized intimately. "What are you doing here?" Lucas asked, his controlled voice masking the whirlwind of emotions that threatened to destroy years of carefully constructed self-control. Isadora lowered her gaze, collecting the shards of the fallen photo. "I work here, Mr. Valmont," she replied formally, each word a stab to her own chest. "I'm the cleaner. I didn't know that you were... Didn't know I was what? Rich?" The question came out with a bitterness that surprised them both. Lucas approached, picking up the photo fragments from her hands, his fingers brushing hers for an instant that felt like an eternity. "This photo, where did you find it?" "It was on your desk. I shouldn't have..." Isadora recoiled, creating distance between them. Lucas's proximity awakened memories she had buried as deeply as possible. "I need to finish my work." "Your work?" Lucas laughed bitterly. "Isadora, we need to talk." "We have nothing to talk about, Mr. Valmont." She emphasized his surname, erecting an invisible barrier between them. "The past is in the past." But Lucas couldn't tear his eyes away from her. He still saw the girl who ran barefoot through the dirt roads of Camden, who dreamed of being a teacher, who made him believe that 2 poor young people could conquer the world together. "How did you get here, Isa? What happened to you?" The affectionate nickname hit her like a punch. "Don't call me that," she whispered, fighting back tears. "That girl died a long time ago." "No, she didn't. She's right here in front of me." "No!" Isadora exploded, years of pain and resentment finally finding a voice. "That girl died the night you disappeared without a goodbye, without an explanation. She died when she found out she was pregnant and you weren't there. She died when she lost the baby alone in a public hospital while you were building your empire." Lucas's world collapsed. "Pregnant? You were..." His voice faltered. "There was a baby." Isadora covered her face with her hands, the weight of the secret she had carried alone for so long finally shared. "There was," she whispered, "for 3 months. Then there was nothing." Lucas felt his legs weaken. He leaned against the desk, trying to process the devastating information. "Isadora, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. If I had known..." "What would you have done? Come back to Camden, given up on your dreams of greatness?" She looked at him with a mix of pain and defiance. "Don't lie to me, Lucas. You chose to leave there. You chose to leave me behind. I didn't have a choice. My parents died in that fire, remember? I had nothing left in Camden except..." He stopped, unable to finish the sentence. "Except me," she completed bitterly, "and I clearly wasn't enough." The tension between them was palpable, a toxic mixture of attraction, hurt, and regret. Lucas took a step toward her, but Isadora recoiled again. "I need to go," she said, picking up her cleaning supplies. "I have other commitments." "Other jobs, you mean?" Lucas observed her calloused hands, her simple clothes, her worn shoes. Guilt crushed him. How many jobs do you have? As many as it takes to survive. Isadora headed for the door, but Lucas intercepted her. Stop, please. His voice was a desperate whisper. I can't let you go like this, not again. You can't stop me from going, Mr. Valmont. You don't have that right anymore. Isadora. He reached out, but didn't touch her. Let me explain. Let me tell you what really happened that night. I don't want to know. But her voice betrayed the lie. She wanted to know, needed to know, even if the truth destroyed her further. Then let me help you now. I don't need your help. The pride in her voice was fierce. I've survived 20 years without it. But you shouldn't have to survive alone. Lucas blocked the door with his body. Do you have family? Someone who depends on you? Isadora hesitated. Gabriel and Grandma Carmen flashed in her thoughts. That's none of your business. Everything concerning you is my business. Don't be ridiculous. You don't even know me anymore. I do, he said with an intensity that made her shiver. I know every line on your face, every nuance in your voice. You may have changed on the outside, Isa, but your soul I'd recognize anywhere. For a moment, Isadora's defenses wavered. She saw in him not the powerful millionaire, but the vulnerable boy she had loved. But then reality hit her like cold water. You think you can just show up in my life after 20 years and what? Win back my heart with pretty words? She laughed bitterly. I'm not that naive girl anymore, Lucas. Life has taught me that words are cheap. Then let me prove it with actions. No. She finally managed to get past him, reaching the door. Tomorrow, I'll ask Mrs. Davies to send someone else to clean your office. You don't need to see me again. Isadora, wait. But she had already left, leaving Lucas alone with the shattered photo and the overwhelming weight of 20 years of regret. The next morning, Lucas was in his office before 7, waiting. But it was Mrs. Davies who appeared, accompanied by an unknown young woman. Mr. Valmont, the housekeeper said, this is Carla. She'll be cleaning your office starting today. Isadora asked to be reassigned to other areas of the house. Lucas felt a deep frustration. Where is she now? In the laundry room, sir. Without hesitation, Lucas went down to the laundry room. He found Isadora folding clothes, focused on her work. She saw him enter and stiffened. Mr. Valmont, do you need something? Yes, he said, closing the door behind him. I need you to have dinner with me tonight. Isadora stared at him as if he had gone mad. That's impossible. Why? Because she struggled to find words that wouldn't reveal how much his presence still affected her. Because we're different people, from different worlds. We were different people 20 years ago too, and that didn't stop us from loving each other. That wasn't love, she lied. It was just a childish thing. Lucas approached, his voice low and intense. Then prove it to me. Have dinner with me tonight and prove that what we had meant nothing. If you can convince me, I'll leave you alone forever. Isadora knew it was a trap, but curiosity and the need to definitively close that chapter of her life spoke louder. One dinner, she finally said, and then you leave me alone. One dinner, he agreed, but his eyes promised much more than a simple meal. The restaurant Lucas chose was discreet, far from the social circles where they might be recognized. Isadora arrived promptly at 8, wearing the only decent dress she owned, a simple, navy blue style she had bought years ago for Gabriel's junior high graduation. Even so, she felt out of place among the impeccable waiters and sparkling crystalware. Lucas was already waiting, and when he saw her enter, something tightened in his chest. She had let her hair down, and it now fell in soft waves over her shoulders, and for a moment he saw again the teenager who had captivated him in Camden. You look beautiful, he said, standing to pull out her chair. You don't have to lie, Isadora replied, but there was a faint blush on her cheeks. I'm only here because you promised to leave me alone after this. I know. Lucas sat across from her, studying every feature of her face. But that doesn't stop me from speaking the truth. The dinner began in awkward silence. Isadora scanned the menu with prices that equaled what she earned in a week, while Lucas struggled to find the right words to begin the conversation they both knew was inevitable. "Tell me about your life," he finally said. "What happened after I left?" Isadora took a sip of the wine she hadn't ordered, feeling the liquid gently burn her throat. "Do you really want to know, or are you just being polite?" "I need to know, Isa. I need to understand." She closed her eyes for a moment, gathering courage. "I found out I was pregnant 2 weeks after you disappeared. My mother kicked me out of the house when I told her. She said I had brought shame to the family." Her voice was monotonous, as if she were recounting someone else's life. "I went to live with my grandmother. I worked in a garment factory during the day and studied at night, dreaming that maybe you'd come back when you knew about the baby." Lucas clenched his fists on the table. "Why didn't you look for me? Why didn't you try to find me?" "And how would I do that?" Isadora stared at him with a mix of hurt and disbelief. "You had vanished without a trace. No one knew where you'd gone. It was as if Lucas Smith had never existed." "I existed," he whispered. "I still exist." "No," she shook her head. "Lucas Smith died the same night as our daughter." The word struck Lucas like a lightning bolt. "Our daughter? It was a girl." Isadora smiled through the tears that finally welled up. "I was going to name her Helena. Helena Smith, like you. But at 3 months," her voice faltered, "I was working a double shift at the factory, lifting heavy boxes. I started bleeding in the middle of my shift. By the time they got me to the hospital, it was too late." Lucas reached across the table, gently touching her fingers. "Isadora, I'm so sorry. If I had known, you would have stayed?" she asked, her voice laden with old pain. "Honestly, Lucas, if you had known I was pregnant, would you have given up everything to stay with me in Camden?" The question hung in the air like a blade. Lucas wanted to say yes, that love would have been enough, but the truth was more complex. At that time, he was desperate to escape poverty, consumed by ambition and the pain of losing his parents. "I don't know," he admitted finally, and the honesty in his voice hurt more than any lie. "I was broken back then. My parents had died, I had nothing. I was just a kid with more anger than sense." "At least you're honest now." Isadora withdrew her hand from his. "After I lost Helena, I buried myself in my studies. I managed to finish high school, even started an education degree. But life had other plans. What happened? My sister died in a car accident when Gabriel was 3. Suddenly, I was responsible for a child. I dropped out of college, took on more jobs, and here we are, 20 years later." Lucas absorbed every word as if it were a confession. The guilt he had carried for decades now had a name and a form. It was a girl named Helena he never knew, a woman broken by the very dreams he had abandoned. "And you?" Isadora asked, breaking the heavy silence. "How did Lucas Smith become Lucas Valmont?" Lucas hesitated. It was his turn to open old wounds. "Valmont was the surname of the family who took me in after I left Camden. I was homeless for a few weeks. I slept on the streets, stole food when necessary. One night, I tried to rob Henri Valmont as he was leaving an expensive restaurant." Isadora's eyes widened. "You tried to rob someone?" "I was desperate." Lucas looked away, ashamed. "But Henri didn't react as I expected. Instead of turning me over to the police, he took me home, gave me food, clean clothes. He offered me a chance." "What kind of chance?" "He was a French businessman who had moved to the States. He had no children, he was alone. He informally adopted me, gave me an education, taught me about business. In return," Lucas stopped, struggling with a secret he had kept for 2 decades. "In return for what, Lucas?" "In return, I had to agree to become someone else. Henri was involved in questionable dealings, money laundering primarily. He needed someone clean, without a past, to be the legal front for his operations. I became Lucas Valmont." respectable heir to a European fortune. Isadora stared at him in shock. "You're saying your fortune comes from dirty money?" "It did," Lucas corrected, "in the first few years. But when Henri died 10 years ago, I cleaned everything up. I fired everyone involved in the illegal schemes, invested in legitimate businesses. What I have today was built honestly, but the foundations were built on lies. That's why you changed your name." "I was 18, Issa. I was hungry, cold, with no prospects. Henri offered me a world I didn't even know existed. But the price?" He swallowed hard. "The price was completely losing who I was. Lucas Smith died that night, along with any chance of coming back to you." Isadora remained silent, processing the revelations. The man across from her had become everything she despised in her youth: rich, powerful, morally ambiguous. But she also saw the pain in his eyes, the weight of the sacrifices he had made. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked softly. "Every day." Lucas stared at her intently. "Especially now, seeing what you've become because of my choices." "I've become a survivor," Isadora said with fierce dignity. "And I don't regret that." "I know. And that's why—" Lucas hesitated, then decided to risk everything. "That's why I'm still in love with you." The words hung between them like a confession and a condemnation. Isadora felt her heart race, all the defenses she had built threatening to crumble. "Don't say that," she whispered. "Why not? It's the truth. I've built an empire, Issa, but every night I go to sleep thinking about the girl I left in Camden. Every woman I've known has been compared to you. None came close." "Lucas." Isadora stood abruptly, grabbing her purse. "I need to go. Dinner's not over yet." "For me, it is." She looked at him one last time. "Thank you for dinner, Mr. Valmont. As promised, now you can leave me alone." But as she walked toward the exit, Isadora knew that peace was the last thing she would feel. Lucas had dropped a bombshell into her carefully structured life, and the shrapnel was still falling. Lucas remained alone at the table, watching her leave. He had revealed his darkest secret, confessed feelings he had kept for 2 decades. Now, all that remained was to wait and see if the love that once united them still had enough strength to survive the ruins they had both become. The morning after dinner, Isadora tried to maintain her routine as an anchor against the storm of emotions Lucas had stirred. She arrived at the mansion determined to avoid him, but Mrs. Davies intercepted her at the service entrance with a worried expression. "Isadora, I need to speak with you," the housekeeper said, leading her to a secluded corner. "Last night, after you left for your engagement, I received a strange call. A man asking about you, wanting to know how long you've worked here, if you have access to the private areas of the house." Isadora's blood ran cold. "What kind of man?" "He wouldn't identify himself, just said he was checking references for a possible job. But something about his voice made me uncomfortable." Mrs. Davies lowered her voice. "Isadora, are you in some kind of trouble?" "No, I don't know." Isadora felt her heart pound. In recent months, she had occasionally noticed a black car parked in front of her building, but she had attributed it to the natural paranoia of someone living in a dangerous neighborhood. Before she could fully process the information, a sharp scream echoed from the upper floor. Both women rushed upstairs, finding one of the other staff members, Brenda, fallen on Lucas's office floor, clutching her arm in agony. "What happened?" Mrs. Davies knelt beside her. "I was cleaning the window when I heard a strange noise outside," Brenda moaned. "When I turned to look, something flew through the window and hit me. I think my arm is broken." Isadora looked around and saw shards of glass scattered on the floor, along with a fist-sized stone wrapped in paper. Her blood froze when she recognized her own photo printed on the paper. An image taken outside the restaurant the night before, with Lucas in the background. With trembling hands, she unrolled the paper and read the typed message. "Stop digging into the past, or everyone around you will pay. You have 24 hours. Call an ambulance for Brenda," Isadora told Mrs. Davies, hiding the paper. I'll notify Mr. Valmont. She found Lucas in the garage, about to leave for a meeting. He saw her desperate expression and immediately cancelled his appointment. What happened? Isadora showed him the paper. Lucas read the message, his face progressively hardening. Who else saw this? Only me? Lucas, someone is watching us. Mrs. Davies received a strange call yesterday asking about me. Lucas pulled out his cell phone. Mike, I need you here now. Bring your team and full equipment. He hung up and turned to her. My head of security. We'll find out who's behind this. Don't you understand? Isadora grabbed his arm. That's exactly what they don't want. The more you get involved with me, the more danger I pose to everyone around me. You think I'll let someone threaten you? You will, because you need to think about Gabriel and my grandmother. The words came out in a desperation she couldn't control. I can't lose anyone else, Lucas. I can't. For a moment, Isadora's facade of control completely crumbled, and Lucas saw the frightened girl who still lived inside her. Without thinking, he pulled her into his arms, and this time she didn't resist. No one is going to hurt you or your family, he murmured into her hair. I promise. You can't promise that. Isadora pulled away, but her hands remained on his chest. You don't understand what we're dealing with. Then explain it to me. Isadora closed her eyes, knowing the time had come to reveal the secret she had kept, even from herself. 6 months ago, I started noticing strange things. Cars following me, silent phone calls, people asking questions about me in the neighborhood. I thought it was paranoia until what? Until Gabriel was approached at school by a man who knew things about our family that no one should know. Details about my sister, about you, about Helena. Her voice trembled. He told Gabriel that I was meddling in affairs that didn't concern me. Lucas felt his blood run cold. What affairs, Isadora? I've been looking for you for months, Lucas. I hired a private detective with my savings. The words came out in a torrent of confessions. I couldn't go on living without knowing what had happened to you, if you were alive, if you had married, if you had completely forgotten about us. You looked for me? Lucas stared at her in shock. Why? You said yesterday you didn't want to find me. I lied. Tears streamed down her face. I lied because it was easier to pretend I hated you than to admit I never stopped loving you. But when I finally found out who you had become, when I knew I worked in your house, I thought it was a sign. Lucas held her face between his hands. What kind of investigation did you have done? The detective dug deep into your past. He found out about Henry Valmont, about his businesses, about how you took on the identity. Isadora sobbed. Lucas, he found evidence that Henri didn't die of natural causes as was reported. Someone killed him. Lucas's world collapsed. Henri had been found dead in his office 10 years ago, apparently a victim of a heart attack. The investigation was superficial, quickly archived. What evidence? Altered medical records, witnesses who changed their stories, suspicious payments to hospital staff. Isadora pulled an envelope from her purse. It's all here. The detective said there were people interested in keeping Henri's crimes buried with him, people who didn't want the heir to start asking questions. Lucas opened the envelope, finding photos, documents, records that painted a grim picture of Henri's last days. There was a network of corruption, much larger than he had ever suspected. That's why someone is threatening us, he said, the pieces clicking into place. Your investigation got too close to the truth. And now? Isadora looked at him with despair. How do we stop this? Before Lucas could answer, Mike appeared in the garage with 2 armed men. Mr. Valmont, we have a problem. We've detected suspicious movement around the property, unidentified vehicles, possible surveillance. How many? At least 3 vehicles, professionals. Lucas grabbed Isadora's hand. You're coming with me now. We're going to get Gabriel and your grandmother. Lucas, no. If I go with you, it's just going to make things worse. If you don't come with me, there might not be another chance to protect you. He stared at her intently. Isadora, I lost you once by making the wrong decision. I won't make the same mistake twice. But what if we're digging our own grave? Then at least we'll be together this time. Isadora looked at the documents in her hands, then at the man she had loved and lost, who was now willing to risk everything for her. The decision she made in the next few seconds would change everything, for better or worse. Let's get my family, she finally said. But as they left the mansion, escorted by Lucas's security, neither of them noticed the man with binoculars in the construction building across the street, speaking softly into his radio. Targets are moving. Initiate operation. The point of no return had been reached, and there was no going back. The drive to Astoria, Queens was tense, with Mike constantly checking the rearview mirrors as 2 security cars escorted them. Isadora guided Lucas through the narrow streets to her apartment building, where Gabriel should have been arriving from school. "Oh my God," Gabriel exclaimed as he saw Lucas step out of the armored car. At 12, the boy was smart enough to recognize that something very serious was happening. "Aunt Isa, who is he?" "He's an old friend," Isadora replied, avoiding Lucas's gaze. "I need you to get your things quickly. We're going to be away for a few days." As Gabriel ran upstairs, Lucas observed the deteriorating building, the broken windows, the smell of mold that permeated the air. Guilt crushed him. While he built his empire, Isadora lived in those conditions. "Grandma Carmen is sleeping," Gabriel said, returning with a backpack. "She felt unwell earlier this morning." Isadora rushed to her grandmother's room, finding her pale and struggling to breathe. "Grandma, we need to get out of here now." "My dear," the elderly woman whispered, "who is that handsome man in the living room? He reminds me of someone." "It's Lucas, Grandma, Lucas Smith." Grandma Carmen's eyes widened. "My boy, you've come back." She tried to get up but was too weak. "Isadora cried so much for you." "Grandma, please." Isadora blushed, helping her get dressed. "We need to go." Lucas entered the room, and Grandma Carmen held his hand with surprising strength. "You abandoned her once," she said, her voice firm despite her weakness. "If you do it again, you'll have to answer to God." "I won't abandon her ever again," Lucas promised, and there was something in his voice that made Isadora believe him. During the drive back, with Grandma Carmen and Gabriel in the back car, Isadora noticed a black sedan tailing them discreetly. "Lucas," she whispered, "I think we're being followed." Mike confirmed over the radio. "We've got company, 2 vehicles. I'll try to shake them off." But when they arrived at the mansion, they discovered it was too late. Mrs. Davies met them with an ashen face. "Mr. Valmont, 2 men arrived an hour ago. They said they had an urgent business proposal. They're waiting in your office." "What kind of men?" Lucas asked, signaling Isadora to stay with the family. "Well-dressed, polite, but there was something dangerous about them." Lucas went up alone, finding 2 middle-aged men examining the documents on his desk, exactly the ones Isadora had brought about Henri Valmont. "Mr. Valmont," said the taller man, with graying hair and cold eyes. "I'm Ricardo Montero, an attorney. This is my associate, Mr. Ferreira. We've come to discuss a delicate matter. How did you get into my house?" "Your housekeeper was kind enough to let us in, and your documents. Very interesting." Montero smiled, but there was no warmth in his eyes. "I see Ms. Davis has been investigating matters that don't concern her. What do you want?" "Straight to the point. I appreciate that." Montero opened a folder. "We represent a group of investors who had dealings with the late Henri Valmont. Dealings that were abruptly interrupted after his death. Henri died 10 years ago. Any business of his died with him." "Ah, but you inherited more than you imagined, my dear Lucas." Mr. Ferreira spoke for the first time, his voice smooth but menacing. "Henri owed favors that are now your responsibility." Lucas maintained his composure, but he felt the danger in the air. "What kind of favors?" $50 million to be exact. Money that Henri From our
borrowed.
clients before his inconvenient death. Montero placed documents on the table. Contracts signed by him, endorsed by you as the legal heir. Lucas examined the papers. They were convincing, professional, but he knew they were elaborate forgeries. This is blackmail. This is business, Montero corrected. You have two options. Pay what you owe or face the consequences of a full investigation into Henri Valmont's activities. And believe me, such an investigation would not only destroy your reputation, but also reveal uncomfortable details about how you truly built your empire. You have nothing on me, don't we, Mr. Ferreira opened another folder, revealing photos of Lucas with Henri in clearly compromising situations. Meetings with known figures in organized crime, signing documents in offices that were fronts for money laundering. These photos were taken when you were 19-20. You knew exactly what you were participating in. Lucas's blood ran cold. Some of those photos were real, from a time when he was too desperate to ask questions about the origin of Henri's money. And there's more, Montero continued. Henri's death was not natural, as you well know. We have evidence that he was murdered, and witnesses willing to swear that you were present that night. That's a lie or truth. What matters is what the media and the justice system will believe when this information leaks. Montero stood up. Oh, and there's an additional detail. We discovered that your friend, Isadora Davis, hired a detective to investigate your past. That makes her an accomplice to any attempt to cover up crimes related to Henri Valmont. The threat hung in the air like poison. Lucas knew now that it wasn't just about money. It was about control, about keeping secrets buried. What do you really want? We want you to become our silent partner, Mr. Ferreira explained. Your company will be used for certain transactions. You'll ask minimal questions and receive generous compensation. In return, these documents disappear and Ms. Davis and her family remain safe. And if I refuse? Then early tomorrow, all the American media will receive a full dossier on Lucas Valmont, the criminal who deceived the American elite for over a decade. Your company will collapse, you'll be arrested, and... Montero paused dramatically. Unfortunately, accidents happen to people who know too much. Like your dear Isadora, Lucas felt the trap closing around him. He was being forced to choose between his freedom and the life of the woman he loved. How long do I have to decide? Until tomorrow at noon, Montero said, heading for the door. Oh, and Mr. Valmont? Don't try to be a hero. We have eyes everywhere. Any attempt to contact authorities or leave the country will result in immediate consequences for the Davis family. When the two men left, Lucas collapsed into his chair. 20 years building a legitimate life, and the past had come back to destroy everything. Isadora entered the office minutes later, finding him with his head in his hands. What did they want? She asked, but the expression on Lucas's face already gave her the answer. They want us dead or under control, he said simply. And now there's no choice. We're in this together until the end. Downstairs, Gabriel played with Grandma Carmen, unaware that their lives had just become pawns in a deadly game where Lucas and Isadora's love was both their greatest strength and their greatest vulnerability. The net was closing in and time was running out. The pre-dawn hours were silent when Lucas made the decision that would change everything. At 5 in the morning, he picked up the phone and called Ricardo Montero. I accept the terms, he said simply, but I want written guarantees that Isadora and her family will be safe. Wise choice, Mr. Valmont. Meet us at our office in a downtown high-rise at 10 a.m. and come alone. Lucas hung up, knowing he was signing his own moral death sentence, but if it kept Isadora alive, it was worth any price. He didn't know that Isadora had overheard the conversation from the doorway. When Lucas left for the meeting, she immediately called the detective she had hired months ago. I need all the evidence you collected about Henri Valmont, she said urgently, and I need you to deliver it to the FBI today. Miss Davis, this is dangerous. These people have killed to keep these secrets. then we can't let them keep killing. What neither of them knew was that Montero had anticipated exactly this reaction. At 9 in the morning, while Lucas was on his way to the meeting, all the national newspapers displayed the same headline: American tycoon built empire with organized crime money. The article was devastating. Photos of a young Lucas with ennui in compromising situations, falsified but convincing documents showing suspicious transactions, anonymous witness testimonies describing criminal activities, and at the center of it all, a photo of Isadora leaving the restaurant with Lucas, captioned, "The cleaner who uncovered her boss's secrets." Mrs. Davies rushed to Isadora with the newspaper. "My dear, you need to see this." Isadora felt her world collapse when she read the article. Not only was Lucas being publicly destroyed, but she was portrayed as a blackmailer who had seduced her boss to extort him. The article insinuated that she had discovered compromising secrets and was using them to climb the social ladder. "Aunt Asa." Gabriel appeared in the kitchen with his cell phone in hand, his eyes filled with tears. "The kids at school are texting. They're saying you're a..." He couldn't finish the sentence. Isadora's phone rang. It was her boss from the diner. "Isadora, I'm so sorry, but I can't keep you on. With all this media exposure, our customers won't accept it." In 15 minutes, she lost all 3 jobs. In 30 minutes, the building manager called, saying other residents were demanding her departure. In an hour, reporters started to gather at the apartment building's entrance. When Lucas returned from the meeting, which had been a trap to keep him away while the scandal exploded, he found Isadora feverishly packing. "Isadora, wait, we can fix this." "Fix this?" She turned to him, her eyes inflamed from crying. "Lucas, I've lost everything. My jobs, our home, my dignity. Gabriel can't even go to school because the other kids are calling him a prostitute's nephew. I'll take care of you. You can stay here until... Until when? Until you decide we're too much of a burden?" Isadora threw clothes into her suitcase desperately. "Don't you understand? They won. They've completely destroyed us." "Isa, listen to me." "No," she exploded. "I listened to you 20 years ago when you said you had to leave. I listened to you yesterday when you said you'd protect me. And look where we are now." Gabriel appeared at the door, holding Grandma Carmen's trembling hand. "Aunt Isa, Grandma isn't well. She's confused, saying she wants to go home." Isadora rushed to her grandmother, who was pale and sweating cold. "Grandma, what are you feeling?" "I want to leave this place," the elderly woman murmured. "I don't like these people on television talking bad about my granddaughter." Lucas approached. "I can call my private doctor." "Don't touch her." Isadora pushed him away violently. "You've done enough. Because of you, my grandmother is sick. Gabriel is being humiliated and Her voice broke. "I'm a laughing stock across the entire country. Isadora, please, let's find a solution. The solution is for me to get out of your life." She took Gabriel by the hand and helped Grandma Carmen stand. "That's what you should have done 20 years ago. That's what I should have done when I recognized you in that office. You can't go now. It's not safe. And staying here is?" Isadora laughed bitterly. "Lucas, they got exactly what they wanted. They separated us, they destroyed us, and now you'll have to choose between saving your company or saving me, and we both know which choice you'll make. That's not a fair choice. Life was never fair to us." Isadora picked up the bags, heading for the door. "Gabriel, help Grandma. Where are you going?" "Away from you, away from this life that was never ours." She stopped at the door without turning. "This time I'm the one leaving. And this time I don't want you to look for me." "Isa, I love you. I love you too," she whispered, and that confession hurt more than any insult. But sometimes loving means letting go. Lucas watched her leave with Gabriel and Grandma Carmen, the 3 carrying their few possessions towards a taxi that would take them nowhere. For the second time in his life, he was losing the woman he loved. But this time, there was no excuse of youth or ambition. This time, it was purely and simply because their love had become poisonous to everyone around them. Mike approached, finding Lucas standing at the window, watching the taxi disappear into the distance. "Mr. Valmont, the lawyers are calling. The company is in freefall." Montero paused dramatically. "Unfortunately, accidents happen to people who know too much, like your dear Isadora." Lucas felt the trap closing around him. He was being forced to choose between his freedom and the life of the woman he loved. "How long do I have to decide?" "Until tomorrow at noon," Montero said, heading for the door. "Oh, and Mr. Valmont, don't try to be a hero. We have eyes everywhere. Any attempt to contact authorities or leave the country will result in immediate consequences for the Davis family." When the two men left, Lucas collapsed into his chair. 20 years building a legitimate life, and the past had come back to destroy everything. Isadora entered the office minutes later, finding him with his head in his hands. "What did they want?" she asked. But the expression on Lucas's face already gave her the answer. "They want us dead or under control," he said simply. "And now there's no choice. We're in this together until the end." Downstairs, Gabriel played with Grandma Carmen, unaware that their lives had just become pawns in a deadly game, where Lucas and Isadora's love was both their greatest strength and their greatest vulnerability. The net was closing in, and time was running out. The pre-dawn hours were silent when Lucas made the decision that would change everything. At 5 in the morning, he picked up the phone and called Ricardo Montero. "I accept the terms," he said simply, "but I want written guarantees that Isadora and her family will be safe." "Wise choice, Mr. Valmont. Meet us at our office in a downtown high-rise at 10 a.m. And come alone." Lucas hung up, knowing he was signing his own moral death sentence, but if it kept Isadora alive, it was worth any price. He didn't know that Isadora had overheard the conversation from the doorway. When Lucas left for the meeting, she immediately called the private investigator she had hired months ago. "I need all the evidence you collected about Henri Valmont," she said urgently, "and I need you to deliver it to the FBI today. Mr. Morgan, this is dangerous. These people have killed to keep these secrets. Then we can't let them keep killing." What neither of them knew was that Montero had anticipated exactly this reaction. At 9 in the morning, while Lucas was on his way to the meeting, all the national newspapers displayed the same headline: "American tycoon built empire with organized crime money." The article was devastating. Photos of a young Lucas with Henri in compromising situations, falsified but convincing documents showing suspicious transactions, anonymous witness testimonies describing criminal activities, and at the center of it all, a photo of Isadora leaving the restaurant with Lucas, captioned, "The cleaner who uncovered her boss's secrets." Mrs. Davies rushed to Isadora with the newspaper. "My dear, you need to see this." Isadora felt her world collapse when she read the article. Not only was Lucas being publicly destroyed, but she was portrayed as a blackmailer who had seduced her boss to extort him. The article insinuated that she had discovered compromising secrets and was using them to climb the social ladder. "Aunt Asa." Gabriel appeared in the kitchen with his cell phone in hand, his eyes filled with tears. "The kids at school are texting. They're saying you're a..." He couldn't finish the sentence. Isadora's phone rang. It was her boss from the diner. "Isadora, I'm so sorry, but I can't keep you on. With all this media exposure, our customers won't accept it." In 15 minutes, she lost all 3 jobs. In 30 minutes, the building manager called, saying other residents were demanding her departure. In an hour, reporters started to gather at the apartment building's entrance. When Lucas returned from the meeting, which had been a trap to keep him away while the scandal exploded, he found Isadora feverishly packing. "Isadora, wait, we can fix this." "Fix this?" She turned to him, her eyes inflamed from crying. "Lucas, I've lost everything. My jobs, our home, my dignity. Gabriel can't even go to school because the other kids are calling him a prostitute's nephew. I'll take care of you. You can stay here until... Until when? Until you decide we're too much of a burden? Isadora threw clothes into her suitcase desperately. Don't you understand? They won. They've completely destroyed us. Isa, listen to me. No, she exploded. I listened to you 20 years ago when you said you had to leave. I listened to you yesterday when you said you'd protect me. And look where we are now. Gabriel appeared at the door, holding Grandma Carmen's trembling hand. Aunt Isa, Grandma isn't well. She's confused, saying she wants to go home. Isadora rushed to her grandmother, who was pale and sweating cold. Grandma, what are you feeling? I want to leave this place, the elderly woman murmured. I don't like these people on television talking bad about my granddaughter. Lucas approached. I can call my private doctor. Don't touch her. Isadora pushed him away violently. You've done enough. Because of you, my grandmother is sick. Gabriel is being humiliated and Her voice broke. I'm a laughing stock across the entire country. Isadora, please, let's find a solution. The solution is for me to get out of your life. She took Gabriel by the hand and helped Grandma Carmen stand. That's what you should have done 20 years ago. That's what I should have done when I recognized you in that office. You can't go now. It's not safe. And staying here is? Isadora laughed bitterly. Lucas, they got exactly what they wanted. They separated us. They destroyed us. And now you'll have to choose between saving your company or saving me. And we both know which choice you'll make. That's not a fair choice. Life was never fair to us. Isadora picked up the bags, heading for the door. Gabriel, help Grandma. Where are you going? Away from you, away from this life that was never ours. She stopped at the door without turning. This time I'm the one leaving, and this time I don't want you to look for me. Isa, I love you. I love you too, she whispered, and that confession hurt more than any insult. But sometimes loving means letting go. Lucas watched her leave with Gabriel and Grandma Carmen, the three carrying their few possessions towards a taxi that would take them nowhere. For the second time in his life, he was losing the woman he loved. But this time, there was no excuse of youth or ambition. This time, it was purely and simply because their love had become poisonous to everyone around them. Mike approached, finding Lucas standing at the window, watching the taxi disappear into the distance. Mr. Valmont, the lawyers are calling. The company is in freefall. Valmont? Mike entered carrying an envelope. This was left at the gate. No sender. Lucas opened the envelope and found a single sheet of paper with a typed message. If you want to save Isadora and discover who really killed Henri, be at the Central Cafe at 10 p.m. Come alone. A friend of Helena, the name of his lost daughter, hit him like a lightning bolt. Only Isadora knew about Helena. But how could anyone else know? At 10 p.m., Lucas was at the almost empty cafe. Approached him. Mr. Valmont, I'm Carla Mendez, a journalist. It was Isadora who asked me to meet you. How is she? The question escaped before he could control himself. Fighting, as always. Carla sat across from him. She told me everything, Lucas. About Henri, about the blackmail, about you two. But I need your version to publish the truth. Publish? They'll kill all of us. They'll kill you all anyway if we do nothing. Carla opened a folder. Lucas, Isadora discovered that Montero and Ferreira murdered Henri. You were supposed to be next, but they realized you'd be more useful alive, as a puppet. Lucas examined the documents Carla showed him. Slowly, the pieces of the puzzle clicked into place. Henri trying to get out of the dirty business in his last months of life. The sudden heart attacks. The ease with which Lucas assumed the inheritance. They used me, he whispered, and they're still using me. But Isadora wants to change that. Carla leaned forward. She's risking everything to save you, Lucas. The question is, are you willing to do the same for her? Lucas looked out the cafe window, seeing the city he had conquered through lies and blood. Everything he had built was collapsing. But perhaps, for the first time in 20 years, he could do the right thing. What does she need me to do? Confirm her story publicly. Tell everything you know about Henri. And Carla hesitated. She wants you to know that no matter what happens, she never stopped loving you. The next morning, Isadora woke up in the hotel with a call from Mr. Henry Morgan. Miss Davis, we have a problem. Our enemies found out about the magazine article. Carla was found dead in her apartment this morning, apparently a suicide. Isadora felt the world spin. And Lucas? He's gone. No one knows where he is. Terror washed over her. She had put Lucas in danger trying to save him. Now Carla was dead. Lucas had disappeared, and the truth seemed further away than ever. But as she cried in the hotel bathroom, trying not to wake Gabriel and Grandma Carmen, Isadora made a promise to herself and to Helena's memory. No matter the cost, she would make these men pay. The war had just begun. The despair lasted only a few hours. At 6 in the morning, when Isadora was about to give up everything, the phone in the room rang. Isa? Lucas's voice on the other end of the line made her collapse in tears of relief. Lucas, my God, I thought they had killed you. Almost. Mike got me out of the house 11 hours ago. They raided my mansion an hour later. His voice was tense, urgent. Isa, I know where the evidence is that can destroy them forever. What evidence? Henri recorded everything, all the meetings, all the threats, all the plans. He knew they were going to betray him and prepared himself. The files are in a safe deposit box in Zurich, in an account only I can access, with a code he gave me before he died. Isadora felt a spark of hope. But how do we get there? They're watching us. We don't. They will. Lucas paused. Isa, I need you to trust me one last time. I'm going to turn myself into them, pretend I agree to work for them definitively. Meanwhile, you're going to do something they'll never expect. What? You're going to tell our real story. 3 hours later, Isadora was at the studio of the National Broadcast Network, NBN, the country's most respected news channel. Mr. Henry Morgan had used his last contacts to secure 15 minutes of live interview time on the morning show. Are you sure about this? Asked the anchor, Eleanor Vance. This is a very serious accusation. I have all the proof, Isadora replied, holding the folder of documents. And in an hour, when the program ends, I'll have even more. Across the city, Lucas was sitting in the same room where everything had begun, face to face with Montero and Ferreira. But this time, a third man was present. Tall, elegant, with cold eyes that Lucas finally recognized. Edward Sterling, Lucas said. I should have known. The businessman who controlled 3 of the country's largest construction companies smiled. Hello, Lucas, or may I call you son? After all, Henri always considered you as such. You were the one who ordered Henri's killing. Henri became sentimental in his last years. He wanted to get out of the business, clean his name, leave everything to you as a legitimate inheritance. Sterling poured himself some coffee. We couldn't allow that. We had billions at stake. And now you want me to take his place? Exactly. You sign where we tell you, ask the right questions in the right places, and in return, your dear Isadora and her family remain safe. Lucas looked at his watch. 9:30 in the morning. Isadora should be going live in exactly 15 minutes. And if I refuse, then the first bullet will be in the boy's head, Ferreira said casually. We have men at the hotel where they are staying right now. Lucas felt his stomach churn, but he maintained his composure. All right, I agree to work for you. But I want to see Isadora one last time to say goodbye. Impossible, Montero said. You'll never see each other again. Then we have no deal. Lucas stood up. Kill us all. At least we'll die together. Sterling studied Lucas for a long moment. You've always been dramatic. All right, one last conversation, but here in our presence, to ensure there are no tricks. Lucas nodded, picking up his cell phone. Mike, bring Isadora here now. Sir, she's at the MBN studio. The interview starts in 10 minutes. Sterling's blood ran cold. What interview? Lucas smiled for the first time in weeks. The interview where she's going to tell everything. About you, about Henri, about the murders. And you know what's best? She has evidence. Impossible, Montero screamed. We destroyed all the evidence, not all of it. Lucas pulled a flash drive from his pocket. Henri gave me this before he died, along with instructions to only open it if something happened to him. Last night, I finally opened it. On TV, Isadora began to tell her story. Gabriel and Grandma Carmen were safe at a police station. Mr. Henry Morgan had managed to get police protection after honest officers became aware of the evidence. My name is Isadora Davis, she said, looking directly into the camera. And I'm here to tell how 3 men murdered Henri Valmont and tried to use the man I love as a scapegoat for their crimes. In the office, Sterling grabbed a gun. Kill them all, now. I wouldn't do that, Lucas said calmly. Look out the window. Dozens of FBI vehicles surrounded the building. Henri's flash drive didn't just contain evidence of the crimes. It also had the exact location where the criminal meetings took place, including that very room. You were betrayed by the very man you killed, Lucas continued. Henri recorded everything, every word, every threat, every plan, and he programmed it all to be sent automatically to the authorities if anything happened to him or to me. The doors burst open and FBI agents stormed the room. Sterling tried to shoot Lucas, but Mike, who had entered with the agents, tackled him to the floor. Edward Sterling, Ricardo Montero, Mr. Ferreira, you are under arrest for murder, racketeering, money laundering, and threats, announced the lead detective. On TV, Isadora finished her story. Lucas and I have loved each other for 20 years. We were separated by life, by obstacles, by the lies of people who wanted to use us. But today, no matter what happens, I want him to know that I never stopped loving him, and that our daughter Helena, wherever she is, would be proud to have parents who fought for the truth. Lucas watched the interview on a television at the police station 2 hours later. When Isadora finished speaking, he asked the detective to make a call. Isa. Lucas, my God, I saw on TV that they arrested them. I'm all right. And you? I'm free. For the first time in weeks, Isadora smiled. Truly free. Where are you? At the police station with Gabriel and Grandma Carmen. And you? At the police station too, but in a different room. Giving my statement. Lucas paused. Isa, when we get out of here, would you like to have dinner with me again? She laughed through her tears. Yes. But this time, I choose the restaurant. 6 months later, Lucas had rebuilt his company with entirely clean businesses. Isadora had returned to school, finally completing the education degree she had abandoned 20 years ago. Gabriel was in a private school, brilliant as ever, dreaming of becoming an engineer. Grandma Carmen had fully recovered, returning to tending the garden of the new house where they lived, all together as a family. It was a Saturday afternoon when Lucas found Isadora sitting in the garden, grading papers for her new students. Professor Davis, he said, sitting beside her. Professor Valmont, she replied, playfully using the title he had adopted after deciding to teach business administration at a public university. I have a question for you. What is it? Lucas knelt, pulling a small box from his pocket. Isadora Davis. Will you marry me again? She looked at the simple but beautiful ring, then at the man she had loved her entire life. Again. We married in our hearts 20 years ago when we were lovesick teenagers, only this time I want it to be official. I want the whole world to know that you are my wife, my partner, my life. Isadora kissed him softly. Yes, 1,000 times yes. 2 months later, in a small church in Camden, New Jersey, the same one where they had first met as teenagers, Lucas Smith Valmont married Isadora Davis Valmont in the presence of Gabriel as best man, Grandma Carmen as maid of honor, Mr. Henry Morgan, Mike, and dozens of friends they had made during their journey. There was no press, no ostentation, just 2 people who had found their way back to each other. proving that true love can survive any storm. When they left the church, Gabriel tugged on Lucas's suit sleeve. "Uncle Lucas," he said. He had started calling him that naturally. "Can I ask a question?" "Of course, champ. Do you think Helena is watching us now?" Lucas looked at Isadora, who was smiling through her tears, then at the clear December sky. "I'm sure she is, champ. I'm sure she's very happy to see that we finally found each other again." And on that sunny afternoon in Camden, as they walked hand in hand down the same streets where it all began, Lucas and Isadora knew that some love stories are simply too strong to be destroyed by anything, neither by poverty, nor by time, nor by the lies of others. Some stories are eternal, like theirs.